As promised, I have been by your side all this time.
I mean, it might as well, right? El Shaddai Ascend Metatron is a good game, okay? I really can't do it justice by giving it a straight up review. You have to play it for yourself and draw your own conclusions of whether or not it's good or not. I give this a complete recommendation. 4 stars, 7 out of 10, B+. That's how that works, right? Alright, good. Now go play the game. This game is also very experimental, and I'm going to explain to you how it's very experimental.
Time to go.
It's really weird how they lay out these buttons. You see, square is for attack and X is for jump, of course. What do the other 2 buttons do? Triangle attacks and circle jumps. So they doubled down on a button that could do both the same functions as the first button. Why? I don't know. But if you hold down the attack button, you do a charge attack, and if you hold the guard button, you can do some sort of launcher attack that doubles as an ult attack. First of all, that's really weird how it has to be a 3-button sequence in order to do an ult attack, or you have to wait momentarily to deliver an ult attack. But why? Couldn't you just give me an ult attack? I mean, you have 2 free buttons.
Did you seriously think you could beat me?
However, the combat itself isn't really bad. I mean, sure, the mechanics are a bit confusing to get across sometimes, and at other times it's really hard to convey whether or not you're actually hurting enemies or not. But it's really fun to play around with the combat system. The Arch is really good for quick and fast-paced rapid attacks and delivering devastating combos. It's really more of a standard weapon you really should be using for most of the game. The Gale is for ranged attacks, keeping enemies at a distance and preventing them from getting near you. However, that is actually more of a challenge than put into practice, but whatever, when it works, it works. And the Veil is all about defense and very heavy attacks. However, the drawback is it's very slow, and it takes a lot of wind-up to actually do some real damage. All these weapons are very well balanced out within each other, and the fact that the control system is really weird and a disconnect from the combat system, it's somewhat fun trying to figure it out how it all works together.
If you're that good with your bare hands, let's see how you handle one of God's weapons.
Movement is pretty good in this game. Enoch really does feel like there's some weight to him. However, that is kind of a bad thing on his part, considering that there's a lot of 3D platforming sections. It is really hard to get a bearings on your 3D perspectives when you're trying to do flawless platforming. And you have to get it right on the first go, because every time you miss, it chips off bits of your health, you die, you have to start the whole checkpoint over again. It's really weird, and I really wish they would have tweaked that out a little bit. But for what it's worth, it's a minor complaint. A minor complaint that you'll keep running into, but a minor complaint. The 2D sections are actually pretty fun to play through, because each section actually stands out and is quite memorable, especially the Nephilim stages. However, the one drawback to those sections are the movement, because there's no conversion between 3D and 2D platforming, which I just mentioned in 3D platforming is kinda shit. In 2D platforming, it's somewhat shit, because the drawback that the 2D platforming has is that Enoch's movement has a lot of weight in 3D, and you can definitely feel that in 2D. I mean, he takes a while to get off the ground and he rolls into his landings. These landings of which are kind of imprecise to catch on, and you'll most likely keep jumping around like an idiot thinking that you might fall off the edge, which you might actually do. You're always in a panic for your life. It's a fail of the programmers of themselves. But the way that this is set out, I can't just feel a little bit enticed to take up on this challenge, even though that's not what the intent was.
Go on, take it.
And of course, Throughout these various missions, you'll encounter random bosses. Well, okay, they're not random bosses, they're just bosses that show up on fixed part of the level that you will have no way of knowing if they actually do show up at that port until you've actually played through it a couple of times. These sections here serve no purpose other than for the boss to wreck your shit. This happens multiple times throughout the game. Is that a free walk to the next stage? Random boss fight. Is that an open area? Boss fight. A switch I need to hit? Okay, that does nothing. But the thing that it unlocks? Boss fight. And you're going to lose to all of these. Horribly, I might add. But that's okay, because apparently you're supposed to be losing. And these guys don't kill you for some reason.
I'll let you live.
Why? And these bosses are very well designed in terms of gameplay. I mean, they're very challenging without actually being too much of an aggression. I mean, I've only played a couple of bosses so far, but it appears that every boss plays a bit similarly, but has their own spin on how they play. Some bosses are heavy hitters, others are projectile bosses, others run for Governor State of California, but one thing they all have in common is they're every child's nightmare fuel.
You think you can stop me?
Yeah, these guys are freaky ass motherfuckers. I mean, this game has a lot of surreal design choices. I mean, all the levels are designed beautifully, but more often than not, you're going to catch yourself in a position where you think that that's actually part of the landscape, but it's actually nothing. Beautifully designed nothing, which will inevitably lead to your death. This is more fault to the designers because they probably should have thought more about how the level actually played out rather than how it looked. But again, minor detail that you constantly run into, minor detail. Plus, with everything else that's happening in the game, you're probably gonna forget about it. Until you fall down another pit that looked like a platform. The story is that you are a scribe named Enoch. He puts down the bend to go on a mission for God to recapture 7 fallen angels from heaven to bring them back so God can judge them. You are aided by the silky smooth voice of Lucifer. I don't know who that is, but he brings 4 archangels disguised as goose on his journey with you. Lucifer acts as your save point, and he's the only time when the game actually breaks from its display. Or should I say, lack of a display. Lucifer can control time, giving him the ability to serve as your save point. And you'll know that Lucifer is somewhere on the level because you'll hear him talk to God on his cell phone.
Good news. You got a Gale. No, I haven't told him that yet.
What an asshole. This entire game feels like I'm experiencing someone else's religious experience. I mean, every design choice, every stylized enemy, every song, every leap into a boss fight, it feels like I'm playing it through the eyes of someone who found God. And that's saying something. And the tone doesn't feel at all cynical or on the nose or just awful. It feels like I'm actually a hero trying to do good in the world. Which kind of actually makes me a little bit sad when I have to beat these bosses because they legitimately feel like they're doing the right thing with sticking with humanity, when in actuality they're a huge detriment. Creating heinous things like the Nephilim that just continuously cannibalize until they become huge monsters. Okay, I don't care what kind of tone they were going for, that was adorable. Ugh. Not only does this game have some weird choices mechanically, but also plot and design-wise. I mean, this game really takes advantage of the term Deus Ex Machina. God just kind of intervenes for some reason, and then pieces out, which is weird. And it also delivers onto itself some really surreal imagery, like more surreal than what I'm making it out to be. Like the first gameplay section is this, and I don't even know what the hell this is. I don't know what I'm doing, but it looks pretty. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, during certain points when there's several paths you can go, there is an alternate path. One of these paths will lead to a black portal. Jump through that portal and you have to complete a challenge section where you have to ascend some flights of stairs. Get to the top and you are rewarded with salvation. You fall into the darkness, well, don't fall into the darkness, that's all you need to know. Also, there is a Tron section in this game, like a straight up Tron Legacy section of this game. It shows up out of nowhere, it does a thing, and then you leave.
What? There's something like that? Wow, you gotta feel bad for Enoch.
And this is where I say that this game is completely experimental, because it's not following the conventional standards that you would for a typical hack and slash adventure. Hell, I struggle calling it a hack and slash adventure because there's really not much of hacking and slashing. There's also punching, shooting, more punching, very little bit of hacking. The weapons themselves don't really lend themselves to a typical hack and slash experience. I mean, the Arch is good for fighting multiple enemies and doing some real good damage, but the Gale is not good for fighting multiple enemies, and using it to fight bosses really is a hindrance. However, it is useful for 2D and 3D platforming, so you can reach places that you don't have to reach, and fend off enemies that are far away. The Veil is good for boss battles because it does a crazy amount of damage and it staggers the enemy. However, it only works with one enemy usually, because doing your combos with this weapon will leave you wide open for an attack. And let me talk about the Archangels for a second. It seems that each one of them has bestowed their power upon each one of the weapons that Enoch carries. Gabriel has the Veil, Raphael has the Gale, and you can see that Michael has the Arch. And Uriel is Devil Trigger. When you unleash Uriel, you can unleash devastating attacks on enemies and bosses when using charged attacks. It does make a difference in battle, so save up on that shit. And let's take a second to talk about the presentation, or lack thereof. There is no heads-up display in this entire game. Instead, you judge how much health you have by the armor that's on your body. Enemies will attack you and chip off bits of your armor, and that lowers your health. When you have no armor, take one more devastating hit and you die. But a proper button pressing sequence will bring you back to life. However, that is very limited. And once that wears off, you're out of continues and you have to start the whole checkpoint all over again. You don't see your MP meter at all. Matter of fact, there's no possible way to actually see how much MP you're accumulating during battle, except for when your weapon becomes corrupted. Everything has the focus towards the player. Matter of fact, it's kind of more engaging because Enoch doesn't actually speak much throughout this entire journey. With the surprising lack of dialogue on Enoch's part, it actually conveys a lot of emotions depending on what the mood is presenting. This is amplified in these 2D silhouette platform sections, where Enoch can only progress forward into the next mission, not saying a word to anybody, and just getting from point A to point B. It's really engaging, and I like the atmosphere to it.
What's wrong? Why are you so quiet?
It's clear the dev team doesn't really have that much experience making hack and slash video games, or else they would have made this game really good. But choices both mechanically and technically, it just doesn't work as a hack and slash game by itself. It's not fully utilizing the buttons on the controllers, it's not making combat feel fluid, it's not an easy ride from point A to point B because you're going to run into some sort of problem, and it just has all around very questionable design choices. However, it more than makes up with its visuals and aesthetics, and choice of how you progress through the game, because a lot of this game is meant to engage the player. It's not holding your hand in any type of way, it's presenting the mechanics to you in a fair type of way, and you can do with them as you will. Plus the combat mechanic of having to steal your weapons from the enemy is a unique idea that I really haven't explored much. Plus it's the only game about God that I could find that's not going to piss off both gamers and Christians. And that's a plus in my book if I've ever heard of one. But really, I could sit here all day talking about this game, but you really have to play it for yourself to understand where I'm coming from. I actually recommend you play this game and actually come to your own conclusion about it, because this game is a roller coaster ride. Just look at the visuals, feel the controls in your hands, and follow the characters on this journey and see what is taking place. See what is being unfolded before you, and get your ass wrecked by all these random bosses.
And I thought I was holding back.
You could clear this in 7 hours, if you're good enough.